Hi guys, Mrs. Homan here with another science video. Today we are talking about energy flow. So let's start by answering the question, how do organisms get energy? All living things need a source of energy to survive. Think about it. Where do you get the energy to do everything you do? Where do you get the energy to walk and talk and execute all your daily functions? From the food you eat. So recall from our unit on energy, the food we eat contains chemical energy stored in the bonds between atoms. So there are two different ways organisms can get chemical energy. Either they can make it themselves, producers, or they can get it from others, consumers. Producers, which are mostly plants, produce their own chemical energy or food through photosynthesis. They convert carbon dioxide, water, and radiant or light energy into glucose, a simple sugar, and oxygen. They are also called autotrophs. Auto meaning self and troph meaning method of obtaining food. So they make food themselves. Next, consumers. Consumers are mostly animals, get chemical energy or food from others. Therefore, they eat other organisms because they cannot make their own food like producers. They are also called heterotrophs. Hetero means different or other, and troph means method of obtaining food, so they get their food from others. A consumer that eats only plants is called an herbivore, like a deer. A consumer that eats only animals is called a carnivore, like a lion. A consumer that eats plants and animals is called an omnivore, like a human, and a consumer that eats dead organisms is called a scavenger, like vultures or earthworms. The last type of organism we are going to talk about is a specialized type of consumer, a decomposer. Decomposers get energy by breaking down the remains of other organisms. Decomposers are nature's recyclers. They convert animal and plant waste into materials such as water and nutrients, making them available to other organisms. Examples include fungi like mushrooms, bacteria, and mold. The difference between scavengers and decomposers is complicated, but for the purposes of this class, the main difference is size. Vultures and hyenas and earthworms are larger animals that eat dead things, but fungi and bacteria are small or microscopic organisms that break down organic material. So now that we understand how each type of organism gets energy, now let's explore how that energy flows through an ecosystem. If an organism is eaten or decomposes, the consumer or decomposer takes in the energy that was stored in the original organism. You get energy from the plants and animals you eat. You store that chemical energy in your body to use when you need it. A food chain is the path of energy transfer from one organism to the next in one direction. The arrows in a food chain represent the transfer of energy from the consumed to the consumer. For example, you do not give your energy to the cow when you eat a hamburger. You get energy from the cow. So the arrow would point from the cow or from the hamburger to you. Producers form the base of food chains. Primary consumers eat producers, secondary consumers eat primary consumers, and tertiary consumers eat secondary consumers, and on and on. And last, decomposers recycle matter back into the soil. Each of these is called a trophic level. They help us to compare organisms that share the same function in a food chain. My example here shows the energy transfer from the producer at the base, grass, to the primary consumer, the rabbit, to the secondary consumer, the fox. Food webs show the feeding relationships among organisms in an ecosystem. Food webs are made up of many food chains. Again, the arrows always show where the energy is going. They show how connected ecosystems are. Everything impacts everything else and are more representative of real life. In reality, most animals eat many different things, and food webs show this where food chains only show one path. So for this food web, rabbits and mice both eat grass. Rabbits and mice both eat the wildflowers. The snake eats both the rabbits and the mice, and the hawk eats the rabbits, snake, and the mice. Here we see that the grass and wildflowers are both producers. Because the rabbit and mouse eat the producers, they are both primary consumers. Since the snake eats the rabbit and mice, it is a secondary consumer. And as well as the hawk is a secondary consumer because it eats the rabbit and the mice, as well as being a tertiary consumer because it eats the snake, the secondary consumer. Energy pyramids are the last type of model I'm going to be talking about in this video. Where food chains and food webs show the path energy takes through an ecosystem, energy pyramids show the total available energy in an ecosystem. Each trophic level uses about 90% of the available energy it receives for growing and functioning, which leaves about 10% stored in the organism to pass on to the next. This is called the 10% rule. The higher on the energy pyramid an organism is, the less available energy there is per animal. This is why there are a lot more producers in any given ecosystem than there are tertiary consumers. As shown on my energy pyramid here, if the producers have 1,000 units of energy or kilocalories, then the next level will have 100 available, and the next 10, and the next only 1. So for every 1,000 calories the producers have stored, the tertiary consumer only receives 1. To summarize, all living things need a source of chemical energy to survive. Autotrophs, our producers, are mostly plants, make their own through photosynthesis. Heterotrophs, our consumers, are mostly animals, get it by eating others. They can be herbivores, which eat plants, carnivores, which eat animals, omnivores, which eat both plants and animals, or scavengers that eat dead things. Decomposers are nature's recyclers. They break down the remains of other organisms. These are usually fungi and bacteria. Food chains show the path of energy transfer in one direction, and food webs are made up of many food chains and show the feeding relationships among organisms in an ecosystem. Remember, the arrows represent the energy, and the energy transfer always goes from the consumed to the consumer. Energy pyramids show the total available energy at each trophic level in an ecosystem and give us the 10% rule, which tells us that 10% of the energy in an ecosystem moves on to the next trophic level. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day.